Welcome to PokeClass episode 11. This week, I'm going over a deck that made a surprise appearance at Worlds, placing 12th overall in Masters. The deck is based around Regigigas and was played by Tommy from Finland. The main focus of the deck is to lock up your opponent while you attack and heal with Regigigas level X. After recent rotation, the deck lost a few cards, but with the new set Triumphant being released, some new trainers and supporters may keep Regigigas going strong. This deck can be pretty complicated to explain, so I'll do it in sections of how the deck runs. First, let's look at the attacking part of the deck. There are two forms that Regigigas comes in, and it's down to personal choice which ones you choose to run, so I'll go over the pros and cons of both. First, we have the one from Legends Awakened. This card only has one attack, Gigaton Punch. For an energy and a double colourless, you can do 60 damage or 80 plus 20 to your opponent's bench if you flip heads. This is pretty good for an attack that can be set up in 2 turns, KOing the majority of basic starters, and it can easily one-shot popular cards like Dragonite FB and Garchomp C level X. Also, with 100 HP, there's no way you'll be donked unless you come up against a fighting Pokemon such as Machamp or Donphan. The most popular choice of Gigas is known as the Dragoff Promo. This card has the same HP as the other one and only differs in the attacks that it can do. The main attack used with this card is called Dragoff, and it only costs an energy plus a double colourless. This attack does 30 damage, however, before damage is done you can switch your opponent's Pokemon with another. This will be useful for dragging up already damaged Pokemon, or to lock in heavy retreat Pokemon such as Bronzong G. It also has a second attack, Giga Hammer, which does 80 damage and costs 2 double colourless. This attack isn't used as much as the first, as it can't disrupt like Dragoff can. Running one of each of these is a good idea, or if you want to run just one of them, then choose the Dragoff Promo, as it adds to the disruption that this deck uses. The Dragoff Gigas is great for disruption, but the Legends Awakened Gigas is great for quick and high damage. Next up is the upgrade of the original, Regigigas level X. This card bumps Regigigas' HP up to 150, and also has the Poke Power that makes the deck. Its power, Sacrifice, allows you to KO one of your own Pokemon in play to get 2 basic energy from the discard pile and attach them to Gigas. On top of that, you also remove 8 damage counters from it. This increases the lifespan of Regigigas and allows you to attach multiple energies per turn. The level X also has an attack called Giga Blaster, which does 100 damage and causes disruption at the same time. When you use Giga Blaster, you discard the top card of your opponent's deck and then choose a random one from their hand and discard that too. This gives some nice disruption, being able to get rid of 2 cards which could be crucial in their setup. The downside is that you can't use Giga Blaster in your following turn. So this section covered the attacks you'll be using and ways to attach energies faster by using Gigas X's Sacrifice. This next section is the locking part of the deck. This part keeps your opponent under your control by slowing them down. The lock comes from Mesprit from Legends Awakened. This card has the Poke Power Psychic Bind, which stops your opponent from using Poke Powers during their next turn when you put Mesprit from your hand to your bench. This pairs really well with Regigigas' Dragoff attack. Ideally, you're going to want to start with Regigigas Dragoff Promo, put Mesprit on the bench to use Psychic Lock, and then use Dragoff to lock your opponent's Pokemon from retreating. The way that Mesprit helps with the lock is because ways to retreat common starters like Sableye, Uxie, or Smeargle is to attach Unknown Q. However, after putting Mesprit on the bench, they can no longer do this, which means they need to use their energy attachment to retreat the Pokemon you dragged up. Mesprit will also lock your opponent from using draw cards, such as Uxie, to draw fresh cards after you disrupt their hand. We'll cover more on this later. Now you have their field locked down, you'll need a way to further disrupt them to keep them under complete control. The first way is by using Regice, also from Legends Awakened. Regice's Poke Power, Regi move, causes your opponent to switch their unevolved active Pokemon for a benched one, at the cost of discarding 2 cards from your own hand. This is great for getting those energies you need into the discard pile, which you can reattach straight away by using Sacrifice the same turn. This also aids disruption by forcing your opponent to switch around their field, handy under Spiritomb locks. However, with all the SP in the current metagame, you'll need to be aware of power sprays before attempting the power. A second Pokemon that can aid disruption is Giratina from Platinum, commonly known as Giratina Let Loose. When you place Giratina onto your bench from your hand, you can use its Poke Power Let Loose. Similar to the supporter Judge, Let Loose forces you and your opponent to drop your hands down to 4 cards, which could leave your opponent lost at the start of a game. If you lock their powers with Mesprit and then use Let Loose to adjust their hand, they'll be in a tight spot and can't rely on Uxie to help them out. However, this can also be power sprayed, being a poker power, and Giratina also has a heavy retreat cost, meaning it'll be easily stuck in your active spot if bright looked. Now you have them locked to disrupted, you'll need a way to power up Regigigas by putting energies into the discard pile. This comes in the form of a new card that was given to us in the new set, Triumphant. Rather than a Pokemon, this is a trainer card called Junkarm. This can be better than Regice in some ways, as it can't get power sprayed and doesn't take up bench space, but with trainer lock decks being popular at the moment, Junkarm may get locked too. Junkarm allows you to discard 2 cards from your hand and grab a trainer card from your discard pile. Ideally, you want to discard 2 energies, ready for the sacrifice the same turn. You could also use Regice, mentioned earlier, to help to discard those energies so it can serve a dual purpose. But again, being a power rather than a trainer, it can be power sprayed by SP decks. Both of these methods are great for getting energy cards into the discard pile, but both have downsides, so you may want to choose wisely depending on your metagame. These 3 sections of the deck, attacking, locking, and disrupting, all come together to form the basis of a Gigas deck strategy. You'll now want to boost these by including some trainers and supporters to aid in either of these sections. First, there's Cyrus's Initiative. This card helps even further with disruption and can be used to deny your opponent from using search cards, attaching energy, or even leveling up. Being able to drop 2 further cards from your opponent's hand will help the hand control even further, especially after using Giratina's Let Loose power. This could result in them having a 2-card hand early on. Another card is Junkarm. As mentioned earlier, this card can help you discard the energy you need to get Regigigas sacrifice in as soon as possible. This used to be covered by Felicity's drawing, but of course, the rotation took care of that, so Junkarm is the next best thing. Then you have the general search cards that are included in most decks, such as Bebe's Search, Pokemon Collector, and Pokemon Communication. You may want to include Premier Ball as well, to help you get the level X as soon as possible. Other trainers you'll want to put in include Super Scoop Up, Expert Belt, and possibly Warp Point. Super Scoop Up allows you to pick up any Gigas that's damaged, as you can only run 2 lines of it. You can also use it to pick up and reuse powers such as Giratina's Let Loose, Uxie's Setup, and Mesprit's Psychic Lock. Expert Belts allow you to add further HP to Gigas and makes drag off space damage 50. Warp Point can be used, but some people may prefer to play Warp Energy instead, as you can drag off Pokemon of your choice instead of using Warp Point to switch them around. Now that we have Triumphant, there are 2 or 3 more cards which can help Gigas become more effective. Twins and Black Belt may have their place in a Gigas list, because of the way they only work if you're behind on prizes. With you using Sacrifice to KO your own Pokemon, you'll more than likely be behind on prizes at the start of a game. This sets you up nicely to use Twins to grab any 2 cards from your deck, or you can use Black Belt to power up your Drag-Off attack to 70 base damage, which KOs most basics. These 2 cards are sure to work well in Gigas, taking advantage of its major flaw in the way that it gives away early prizes. The final new card that could be used would be Seeker. This card allows you to pick up a Pokemon and all cards attached to it to your hand, and then your opponent does the same. This can be great for using certain Poker powers again, and can even cause your opponent to have only 1 Pokemon on the field, ready for Gigas to take them out to win. It's a possibility that could be included in many decks, and it may just fit into this one. The final section to cover is Energy. Regigigas' Giga Blaster attack requires Water, Metal, and Fire energy, so running 4 of each makes it more likely for you to start with it. Also, since you probably won't be running any energy search cards, running enough to draw into the ones you need will solve this problem. You may also want to run 3 or 4 double colourless to help Gigas power up even quicker. One final point to make is that you may notice Regigigas has 2 times weakness to fighting. This can really hurt your game if you're up against Donphan or even Machamp. As well as being able to hit for weakness, Machamp can take out your Gigas in one attack, so you'll need to be wary of these matchups. There are various water Pokemon you could take in against Donphan. One of the most efficient could be Water Arceus, seeing as you already run Water Energy. Not only this, but Water Arceus bypasses Donphan's Poke Body, as its first attack isn't affected by Poke Bodies. There are many other counters you could use, but this is just one. Overall, this deck is pretty complex to get your head around, but it's a really effective lock deck which can keep your opponent under one of the strictest locks in the format. Not being able to use Poke powers, making them switch out Pokemon, and yourself being able to use 3 or 4 poker powers a turn will leave your opponent helpless and ready for a Gigas attack. I haven't been able to cover everything, such as adding in tech such as Crobat G, as this deck is tough to explain properly, but I'm sure you'll be able to figure out what to add. I think this is a really unique deck, which many people overlook, and with a handful of useful new cards from Triumphant ready for use, Gigas may make a tiny dent in this year's metagame. So what do you think of Regigigas, and how well do you think it can do? Thanks for watching PokeClass, and make sure you check back next week for the next episode. Are you tired of reading mediocre articles and can't afford to pay monthly fees to read the ones with decent content? Then head over to propokemon.com, the newest supporters of PokeClass. This site boasts high quality articles from writers such as the senior UK national champion, which include TCG strategy and deck analysis. Make sure you check them out on the link below, and thanks for supporting PokeClass.